Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer and broadcaster. And down through the years, one of my great delights is, if not presenting radio programmes about the music I love, then being asked to discuss it on someone else's radio show. What follows is one such clip of myself and Mike Murphy, Ireland's greatest art show presenter ever, discussing something I wrote about during my 10-year tenure with the Irish Times. You see, during that decade, the 1990s, I also happened to be the popular music correspondent for the art show on RTE Radio 1, and both that station and the Irish Times like to see themselves as the radio station and newspaper of record, respectively. These programme segments, and sometimes full shows, would usually occur after Mike read an article I wrote and phoned me to appear on the programme, or after I myself would recommend an item that might be of interest to our listeners, and even provide a script, around which Mike and I would happily improvise. By the way, if you want to read some of the articles I wrote about music, the arts and popular culture in general, plus politics, check out my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.
Two very conflicting views of singer-songwriter Christy Moore, whose new album, Graffiti Tongue, has just been released. In opposite camps are critics Diarmuid Doyle from the Sunday Tribune and Joe Jackson from the Irish Times, and they're both in studio with me. Now, Diarmuid, let me start with you. You had what could be called a swinging attack on Christy Moore in the Tribune, the gist of which was that he has sold out. Is that a proper assumption from the article?
I think what the point I was trying to make was that over the last 10 years in particular, Christy has gone from being what you might call the national conscience, a person who wasn't afraid to ask hard questions, who wasn't afraid to be political. And over the last 10 years, that's changed. And his image now is of this kind of clown in the vest, as I said, the kind of the Frank Carson of Irish music, who sits on his stool and sings novelty songs. And that edge has gone from Christy.
That's very harsh, isn't it? The Frank Carson of Irish music, sitting on a stool.
But I think to a degree, I'm not too sure to what degree, he plays up to this image. You know, he's quite happy to sit there and sing his Lisdoon Varnas and sing his Don't Forget Your Shovels. And that isn't Christy. You know, you hear those songs once or twice and they're gone, they're not funny anymore.
And are you saying that this is in recent times, and are you saying it with particular reference to this new album, Graffiti Tongue?
I'm saying over the last 10 years, and I mean, I've searched this album for proof that I was wrong, because I was a very big Christy Moore fan years ago, but there's no great evidence that he's changed. There's a song called On the Mainland, which is an example of the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's not as bad as the Lisdoon Varnas or Don't Forget Your Shovels, but it's still there. It's a song lacking any kind of tune whatsoever, and words which are forgettable after the second go.
Okay, now just, Joe, I know you're dying to get in, and I'm not going to let you in yet, if you don't mind. Just hold on a second, because I want to talk to Diarmuid about this, because in this track, On the Mainland, he's actually making reference to the fact that the English announcer on a BBC programme is claiming Seamus Heaney, the Nobel Prize winner, as a British Nobel Prize winner. Now, isn't that something that is topical, and doesn't it have some slight edge to it?
It has a slight edge to it, but I think that the points he makes in the song are wrong. He asks the question, well, you didn't do this to George Best and Alex Higgins, you didn't claim them as English people. They did. They were quite happy to claim those two success stories as English, and they may feel that they're as entitled to claim Seamus Heaney, who was born in what for them is their country, as one of their own. They may be wrong about that.
But your criticism about this song that we're about to hear is that there isn't enough bite in it, and that there is no tune.
There's no tune at all, except a bit towards the end where he tries to get a little chorus going with himself, but the words are forgettable. They're cliched. The point's been made loads of times before, and it's not new.
Well, let's listen to it. This is On the Mainland. That's On the Mainland from Christy Moore's new album, Graffiti Tongue, introduced for us there by Diarmuid Doyle. Now, Joe Jackson, the right of reply, and are you defending Christy Moore on that particular tune?
On the particular tune, no. On his career over the past 10 years, yes. And in relation to that song, I think the point you made is totally accurate. I don't think it's right to say that the English have a tendency to say, like, they don't go one side or the other, they change. If Richard Harris wins an Academy Award, he is English. If he has a brawl, he's Irish. So there's a question raised by it. I think it's very healthy for Christy to reappropriate or to just point a focus at that. It's not a huge statement, it's a small statement, but to me it's indicating to listeners or people who hear the song, watch out for this kind of nonsense. And the other comment that all the stuff he's made has come to jokes. I don't know what you're trying to include. I mean, his last album was Smoking Strong Whiskey. He does Shane MacGowan's song, he does a song about heroin addicts in Dublin, Whacker Humphreys. And I also totally disagree with, even when he does Delirium Tremens on the live album, if he does one line where he says, I dreamed I was in a jacuzzi with that old whore from number 10, and the audience hook in because that's how a lot feel about it. It doesn't matter that the tune is weak or maybe the overall song goes on for 2 minutes too long. I think that he has created a moment of identification and expression for the crowd that is healthy and useful, and I don't see any deterioration in the work at that level.
I mean, I didn't say that all his songs were novelty songs. Clearly, they aren't novelty songs. When we can argue about the non-novelty songs later on as to whether they're any good, but there's an image of Christy, which he has allowed to be created over the last 10 years of himself as this national joker. Okay, and he's quite happy to sit there, and he's quite happy to have the people laugh at him and take the plaudits on that basis. But the Christy, the political Christy, the strong Christy, the unafraid Christy is no longer there.
Okay, I raised the question of Franklin Humphreys, which is a song about heroin addicts in Dublin. He's not sitting on a stool and singing inane lyrics there.
No.
And I also, there's one point, one of your quotes was when you talked about the live album, right? Your full quote was that it was a nightmare, the basic tunes, inane lyrics and how's it goes lined up one after another in a battalion of banalities. Now, there's 14 songs in the album, 5 are by Christy, and in that you're wiping away Jimmy McCarthy, Shane MacGowan, Ewan McCall. How on earth can you justify that description of this album?
I mean, we can talk about the album if you like, but we're here to talk about the new album and about.
Well, no, we're here to talk about. You said 10 years. 10 years is the man's career. Are you
10 years? Not the man's career. There was a career long before the 10 years.
As a solo singer-songwriter, are you saying from Ride On to Here is all rubbish?
I'm saying that a good proportion of it is rubbish, and a good proportion of the new album is rubbish as well.
Okay, but how do you justify that quote? You put that in print about the live album. Let's not move on to the other one. Are you saying that the 9 songs by all those other songwriters are inane lyrics and they say nothing?
I'm saying that
it's ludicrous.
I'm saying that Christy and the songs that he writes. I mean, remember about this album that Christy wrote this album more or less entirely. And
why are you jumping away from the comment you made about that, which you said the turning point for me, you wrote in the article, was when I heard this heap of nonsense. You cannot justify
which heap of nonsense now is this?
The album. The live album. This was the moment you decided that Christy had deteriorated into delivering banalities. How can you say that when only 5 of the songs are his and Delirium Tremens is one of his best songs? Now, there's an argument for some of the other songs.
That Delirium Tremens is one of his best songs.
He thinks it is, and I think
that's fine. But I mean, Christy thinks a lot of things, and he's allowed himself over the last 10 years to change.
I don't think so. He doesn't think he's changed.
We could have an argument here about why he's allowed himself to do that. It may be that the way radio has changed, particularly in the country, he won't get a song about Bloody Sunday, which is on the new album. He won't get that played in the radio anymore. He's got to go to Liston Varnes. He's got to go to Don't Forget Your Shot.
But he doesn't. You're talking when he does his concerts, he does them all.
Well, he does. The one you picked, Diarmuid, in your article too, was the one about the Vanguard as the Rose of Tralee in that. I mean, saying that's particularly banal.
But it's not representative. It's not representative.
It's representative of the image of Christy Moore that has developed over the last 10 years.
Before you wrote this article, had you heard the new album? I believe you didn't.
I hadn't heard the new album before.
Have you seen him in concert?
Having heard the album, can I ask you, Diarmuid, having heard the album, which presumably you have since then, have you changed your view?
No, I haven't changed my views, and I think that the disappointing thing about the album is that you look beyond the novelty songs for examples that his songwriting is good, that he's still on the ball in terms of the other subjects that he's writing about, and there is no evidence of that whatsoever. It's a really weak album. It's really weak lyrically, and it's really weak musically. There are 12 songs. It's 35 minutes long. I've heard it 6 or 7 times over the weekend, and maybe 3 of those songs have stuck in my head.
Joe, would you like to introduce something then that will illustrate your point, which is that Christy has not sold out, that he's not a court jester?
That's an absurd comment.
I'm quoting.
No, I know, but I think Diarmuid has locked himself in an entrenched position because, and I also am a bit nervous about this thing today. I'm not against Diarmuid, and I did write a review of the new album partly as a response to that. But I hate this idea or I fear he may have written that just to stir controversy.
I think
this comes out.
There is an important point you made with Christy Moore. Christy Moore has the potential for genius. He's been there many times before. He was a fantastic singer in the 70s and the 80s when he started with Planksty, when he was doing stuff with Andy Irvine, when he was doing stuff with Moving Hearts. And since this man and his guitar troubadouring around the country singing these novelty songs, he has changed. There is no question in my mind about that. And it's
how has he changed as a singer? You've just said singer. We'll move away from the songwriting. What is of less quality in the way he sings now than the way he sang?
His voice is fine, but the songs that he's singing aren't fine.
And Joe, illustrate something now.
Well, I mean, on the new album, I admit there are, and I said in the review in the Irish Times, something like God Woman is a one-line joke. I don't particularly like the song he wrote with Bono on the Edge about the North. I think there's far more he could say and should say and has said about Northern Ireland following the breakdown of the ceasefire, or following the ceasefire when it was installed. But something like Riding the High Stool, which to me, again, is true to Christie's political base, and the reason he actually drew back from his very hardline Republican position, it's celebrating the lives of ordinary people. It's naming them, it's putting them in a bar, and it's making that moment breathe in a way that I believe it will for the rest of time whenever music is listened to. And the tribute to Rory Gallagher, which has some inane lyrics, but he's taken the time to actually put down what to me is a heartfelt, well-sung, well-delivered tribute to a fellow musician.
Riding the High Stool coming up.
Thank you.
Okay. That's Riding the High Stool there, and that's from Christy Moore's latest album, Graffiti Tongue. Now, during that, Diarmuid Doyle and Joe Jackson and myself were talking, and I was making the point that I thought that possibly the best lyrics in the album are from Paul Meehan, the poet, in Folktale. Now, do either of you have any...
Yeah, this is where I bring it back. The point I was trying to make, that I think it's wrong, and it's a kind of old, it's like a prehistoric approach to the usefulness of a pop singer, that the only worth is the songs they create, that you must judge them. If he's a singer-songwriter, he can only be judged on that. Some of the best work Christy has done, up to and including the new album. And when he does Fairy Tale of New York, he said to me he's written 500 songs, but he has recorded only 25. The new album brings it up to 28. He's recorded, 12 albums, and going back to Planksty and his early stuff. So the bulk of his material is interpreting other people's songs. And when I listen to this Paul Meehan lyric, I hear no deterioration in terms of his insight, his intelligence, and his commitment to interpreting the text of the song. In actual fact, I believe that at his age now, it's deeper, more mature, and more complex.
And are you saying that about the overall album? Graffiti Tongue, are you saying this is one of his best
No,
albums?
I am not saying that. And I also think at 35 minutes, he could have thrown out at least 4 more songs.
Okay, Diarmuid, what is your view? And one of the songs that you mentioned there, Joe, is Rory Is Gone. Now, I think we should play it and let people make their own judgment on it. But Diarmuid, can you tell me now, just take that song, Rory Is Gone, as an example of a song from the album, and can I have your opinion on it?
Right. The first thing about Rory Is Gone is that it's a weak tune, so we turn to the lyrics for rescue. And the first line is that Rory's gone to heaven to play the blues. Anybody who starts...
This is Rory Gallagher.
This is Rory Gallagher. Anybody who starts a song like that should immediately tear it up and start again. It's an awful cliche. It's the kind of stuff that 6th class students write if they were asked to write a poem about Rory Gallagher.
This idea, again, to reduce a song just to what the couple of words mean. Let's listen, feel the sentiment, listen to what he's saying and the colours in his voice, listen to the accompaniment on the guitar. There are other ways to read a song than just reduce it to 2 lines that are correct.
All right,
yeah, but you're detecting something there that I don't detect.
We're going to play
you're
that.
close to Christy Moore.
No, not close to Christy Moore. I would love to.
Well, I'll tell you something. If sufficient numbers of people buy the album just to make their minds up after the 2 of you discussed it, Christy will be a very happy man indeed. That's for sure.
Don't forget the backhanders, Christy.
Graffiti Tongue is the name of the album by Christy Moore, and this is our final track.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. And don't forget, if you want to read any of my articles, check out my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.